Hi everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Mike Reviews It All. Mike here.
Garth here. We are ready to podcast.
We are gonna talk about traffic, and traffic is getting so freaking ridiculous here around Seattle. And Garth was telling me he has an interesting take on that, but he hasn't told me what it is yet. He's gonna save it for now.
Okay, but before we get into that, I have to explain. This shirt that I always wear has two pockets. That's why I wear it. I would have another shirt and I have a really dynamic wardrobe, except that I need one for smokes, one for my phone. So that's why you constantly see this shirt. Okay, that being said, okay, the traffic thing is very important. It's one of the most important things that's going to affect your life. Everybody knows somebody who's been in a wreck, who has somehow had their life fouled up through traffic. I lost a couple of family members, okay, extended family. I was rear-ended a couple of years ago, right, and ended up with a couple complications health-wise from that. And the people had no insurance, okay, so, and wouldn't answer the phone.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah,
No.
and whatnot. But the basic premise is that the most dangerous thing, okay, that you live with every day, it's not cigarettes. It's not crime, okay, unless you're, homeless on the street or something like that. That is every day. What it is every time you get into that car, okay, it could be your last. Okay, things are crazy on the road. It's not just traffic jams and whatnot. There's just a lot of people that are out there that probably shouldn't be driving for one reason or another.
Oh, there's definitely people that shouldn't be driving. I know a ton of them, and a lot of these small towns. I mean, I'll admit, I was in a small town, and they would just pass you. If you were close, especially, they give you 3 times.
Yeah.
And if you were just that bad of a driver, they just wanted it to be done. Here's your license. We know you're a crappy driver. Here's your license.
Yeah, everybody's going to have to just work around it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of old people out there who see the problem is that when you lose that ability to drive, you lose 90% of your independence. Okay, unless you're rich and you got your own chauffeur and limo, or you can afford to grab an Uber or a taxi for wherever you go. Okay, essentially, what the system does is marry you to the car. Okay. Before you're even married, you're married to the car, okay? Because the building codes, and this, I'm always harp on this, the building codes and the zoning regulations, okay, especially the zoning regulations, okay? First, they deny you affordable housing, so you can't really, just have something to live in and pick where you want to live, No, you can't do that. You have to basically pick a place that is within your budget somewhere. And if you're making more money, Boeing's paying you a whole buttload, right? Okay, by golly, you're moving up to the east side or something. And
or you're living in, you're commuting to Seattle. You're living like I am in Lake Stevens. And the 90-minute commute, they call it the 90-minute commute, they're saying is getting very prevalent. I can't remember what I want to say, you look this up, I might be wrong, but I think I'm close. I want to say they said about 15% of Americans are making a 90-minute commute each way.
Yeah, and that's tacked on to all the other stuff that you have to deal with during the day. But the zoning regulations separate the residential from the commercial from the industrial, and that marries you to the car. You have to drive to get to work. You have to drive to get to school. You have to drive to go shopping. You have to drive to go to church. To do anything in life, you got to have transportation. And
so could Amazon possibly be a good thing?
Amazon deliver.
They're going to send all our stuff in drones.
Drones. But what that does is that helps people who want to bunker up, right? You want your food delivered. So you're always ordering pizza. Or you got agoraphobia and you can't go outside or anything like that. You're bunkered up.
And that is a real thing. It's pretty rare.
It is a real thing, and there's people who have to avoid people at all costs, and they only stay in their safe place. Some people can't like cross a bridge. The fear is just so bad, right? But you are married to the car because of those zoning regulations, and those zoning regulations are there, okay, to accomplish several things. Basically, the number one thing is to make sure you don't have a community, okay, that is self-sufficient, that can defy the government, that's a political power base that can say no to the government. This is why they do this. This is why you're married to the car, is because the government, it needs to keep power bases from forming, and it needs to create chaos, okay? Because sometimes we don't have a war. It's rare, but sometimes we don't have a war.
We're big enough to talk about it.
Yeah, and so essentially there's so much chaos created, okay? I mean, it's an industry. You got the oil companies, you got the big car companies, okay, you got all the mechanics, you got the insurance companies, you got the healthcare industry, you've got city governments, you've got...
Well, just talking about cars, you have to have the insurance. You have to, obviously you need gasoline, you need oil, you need all these things, and you want to break up a community. What better way to do it than have everyone living 90 minutes away from where they work every day?
Exactly, and you should live where you work. You should shop where you live, and you should have the school there within a stone's throw so your kids can walk to it. And what this does is and a hospital. First of all, before the Civil War, that was when hospitals really got rolling, was after the Civil War, okay? Because doctors realized they had a lot of power when they were all concentrated in one place. People had to come to them, right? But so before the Civil War, old Doc Brown came to you. If you were sick, nobody in their right mind said, he can't get out of bed, he's sick, right? So here comes Doc Brown because he's healthy, he's got 2 legs or a horse and buggy, right? And he's there at your house, and he's looking you over, and he's going, okay, so do this, do that, right? And then, which brings up the whole smear of healthcare, which we can go into later, but it boils down to you should have a doctor who knows you from cradle to grave. I highly recommend the Michael J. Fox movie, Doc Hollywood. If you can watch Doc Hollywood, that gives you kind of an idea.
I've heard of that.
Of what I'm talking about. Okay, so, but essentially, did I say essentially again? I always say essentially.
And say Doc Holliday, isn't that a character from Tombstone?
Doc Hollywood. It's a little different.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so
just trying to get as far off the subject as possible. I'm good at that.
I have to have another connecting word besides essentially. I know people are probably drinking a beer every time I say essentially. Essentially.
That could be a game. Yeah. Now they just quit because they're passed out.
Now they're going to look for it. If they didn't know it before, now they know it. Right? It's one of those helps you move along type words. Speaking of moving along, traffic. Okay, you're spending years of your life, okay, stuck in traffic. Just think about it. Do you really want a year of your life taken out and put in a traffic jam or spent on the road doing nothing but just...
Well, nobody does, but think about this for a second. How many people would be off their anti-anxiety medicines if they weren't in traffic for an hour and a half each way to work, or an hour to work each way? How much is that compounding their problems? I mean, I don't know what percentage of Americans are on some kind of anxiety medication or depression medication now, which depression, if you don't know, a lot of it is caused by being sedentary, like sitting in your car. What percentage of that is, I don't know, but it seems like about half of people anymore are on some kind of anti-anxiety or depression medicine.
It never used to be a thing, okay, but now it's a thing, okay, because dealing with society, dealing with the plethora of problems that, our grandfathers did not have to deal with, okay, They weren't, actually my grandfather, lived in a small town. Traffic wasn't really an issue. Okay, the idea of spending 2 hours stuck in traffic, okay, would have been appalling. To our forefathers in a small town and whatnot. They're going like, what? Well, why would you do that? That was a once in a while thing. When growing up in the '60s in Portland, Oregon, we did have traffic jams, but they were once in a blue moon. Most of the time, you got from point A to point B fairly quickly. Okay, but
Portland's one of my least favorite places to go through now. There's always a traffic jam.
Really?
Like going through Portland.
Yeah.
Anytime I go, or anytime between 2 and 8 p.m., it is the worst traffic jam on my commute. Almost 90% of the time, worse than Seattle, worse than a lot of other areas. For some reason, there's just this bottleneck there, and it seems like I'm only stuck for like an hour without even moving.
Yeah, it's funny. Portland's a river town. They got traffic coming in from all angles, and whatnot. And we have like a ton of bridges, and you got the good thing about Portland is multiple parks. Okay, which is good for the homeless. They didn't realize that when they planned the doggone city that the homeless were going to use those parks the way they do, but they do, unfortunately. So, but I love Portland. Portland back in the day was great. Portland now is bad, but also Seattle it's got two big bodies of water on either side. It's got the Puget Sound on the west side. It's got Lake Washington, which is a 22-mile lake on the east side. So everything is pretty much on the I-5 bottlenecked in through Seattle. Okay, and so and everybody's trying to get there or trying to get to the east side, which is trying to catch up with Seattle. Going up the 405, and then you have the I-90 bridge, one bridge, and then you have the Evergreen floating bridge of the 520 to give you some sort of leeway going east and west from Bellevue. Anyway, that's another one. Okay, essentially and any rate. Okay, I am trying to make a mental promise to myself to avoid those connectors, right?
We all have our words we say, but you know what? Anybody watching this is in Los Angeles right now is saying, you guys are a bunch of whiners. They got 20 million people shoved, literally, over 5 million people shoved in a 20-mile radius.
Can you imagine?
It's insane.
Can you imagine what it's like in China?
Oh man.
Hong Kong.
And
Tokyo.
Especially some of these places, they don't have traffic lights. I kind of wonder sometimes if we'd be better without them. Because then you just let people judge, and the stupid people, you get it over with sooner.
Yeah,
we're going to have to deal with population control eventually.
See, that gets to the next big point, population control. The government, has a vested interest in population control. And there are pros and cons, but they want chaos, so they have to import chaos from overseas. That's called legal immigration and illegal immigration. If you are inundated with illegal immigration, why would you keep going with legal immigration? And I brought the question up in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And the talk show hosts were like, yeah, I never thought of that.
Well, they should have reformed immigration 50 years ago. It's so hard for people, and I know I'm going a little off track, but it's so hard for people that need to get here and actually want to work to become legal. There's very little incentive to become a legal citizen.
Yeah, and because they're just letting the doors open for anybody. That benefits the government. That benefits the corporations who get lower wages. The government wants those liberal votes, right? In order to try and keep that two-party balance, which is basically one party disguised as two, working both sides of the street. If you don't know that now, you've got to take this premise and run with it. Look at it. It makes sense. It's just two basketball players throwing the ball back and forth, and acting like that's the game. Okay, it's not. Okay, it's a rigged game.
They've built this cult mentality to such a masterpiece, though, because if you're on this side, if you're on the left right now, and I mean they both take their turns being extreme in different ways, but I would say the left has more control in social media and different things like right now, even though we have a Republican president. If you don't believe in everything they want you to believe, you're against them. So if you're anti-abortion, you can't be part of their group, even if you're anti-gun.
If you're white, if you're Christian, if you're conservative, you have any kind of want to hold on traditional values and whatnot, it just creates chaos. They create laws. They know we're going to create chaos. Like this latest one in Washington State, where it's called the EDUI law. Okay, where you can't text.
Eat and drink while driving, and the texting while driving.
Yeah. So that affects eating, drinking, smoking, and electronic texting. Which the texting we can all get behind. Everybody hates people they see texting while driving. Okay, it's nerve wracking. Okay?
I'm so tired, of being at a stoplight. I'm trying to get to work, and I've been sitting here. Light hasn't changed in 5 freaking minutes, and nobody's moving. I look up what's going on. Somebody's playing on their phone.
Yeah, and so having a law against that, okay, I have no problem because it's just flat wrong. Okay, but here, if you can't have a coffee, if you can't, sit at a light and munch a donut, or you're on the highway and you can't have a smoke, to relax you after you get clear of traffic.
Yeah, I noticed that was one of the things they talked about, smoking.
See,
and
this is what they do. They pile on all this extra stuff, okay? They have one good thing, and then they pile on all this extra stuff. They want you miserable in that car. They want you to be pushed towards road rage. This law is going to cause more accidents than it's going to stop. Okay, most people who have been texting and driving have gotten pretty good at it by now. Okay.
All right. I don't know. I'll see where you're going with this. But
but basically, I'm saying that when you take away and you add all this nanny state stuff, okay, it forces people to have more stress when they're driving. Okay. Certainly, you should not be distracted. Okay. As a professional driver who's driven taxis, trucks, delivery vans, I haven't delivered pizza, never done that. But limo driving for many years and whatnot, I believe in safety on the road. And I believe that little old lady sitting in the back with a wine glass shouldn't have to worry about spilling it, right? Because you're driving careful. That's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, and whatnot. But I know that I like to smoke when I'm driving. Sometimes I have usually one smoke on the way to where I'm going, unless I get stuck in a traffic jam. If you get stuck in a traffic jam, I say blaze up, right? If it's going to keep you calm and whatnot,
well, you're going to be there for a while before this rule. I will admit, there was times when traffic hasn't moved. It's not going to move for 20, 30 minutes. I mean, my engine's turned off. I turn my phone on. I'm watching a YouTube video or something.
Well, I wouldn't suggest that. Don't put that idea out there. Erase.
People are already doing it. I see them doing it all the time. I've seen people at stoplights playing Candy Crush. That's the reason they have this rule. And I am not a good driver, I will admit. I probably shouldn't even be allowed to have a phone in my car. Of course, I'm going to leave about 15 minutes after you. But no, I haven't been in a lot of accidents, but I just really don't like driving. I like the freedom to be able to drive, but I don't like driving.
When you're a young person and you first get a car, okay, you are the Hulk. Okay? And that's where most of the problems, a lot of these problems that come with kids who are simply inexperienced, who have not, you've got to get used to traffic. But once you get too relaxed and whatnot, I mean, when I first started driving in Portland and whatnot, I had a 1962 Impala with a 283 engine. That's a fairly big car.
Yeah.
Okay. I was the Hulk, and my friends from the old neighborhood had a car. It was some sort of Ford or whatever, So it was Chevy versus Ford. We were playing tag in our old neighborhood, right? Using cars, racing up alleys and whatnot, It was fun, I'd go out on dates
and you didn't have so much traffic to worry about.
Yeah, back then, but there are actually guardrails up in West Seattle because of stuff I used to do. I'm an old cruiser from the 70s. I'm afraid I got into a lot of trouble. But I had a lot of fun days.
Yeah.
Okay. And whatnot. But I regret, certain things like going 100 miles per hour on the viaduct and stuff like that. But it's kids are going to do that stuff. They're going to. You see it all the time now. You'll be driving down the freeway. I'm doing the old man 55 double nickels, right? And then like 2 or 3 of these little hot rodders go shooting by, right? At 90 miles an hour, right? It's some sort of a impromptu race of some sort that they got into, right? And so bang, zoom, they're off and running and create problems. And I've seen way too many wrecks. These poor kids, you see it in the news all the time, just got out of high school, had a graduation, was getting ready for college, and then, and now they're tragically dead because of some stupid traffic thing, right?
So why can't we have an extracurricular activity class in high school and college where you get a controlled racetrack and you just you can put them in these demo cars and you just let them get it all out there. You could learn to be a professional stunt driver in high school.
Okay, so for anybody who's a millionaire out there, and you want $1 million idea, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to build a privatized demolition derby. Get old cars together, let these 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and whatnot, when to go out there and just get it out of their system, right? Just go ahead and get it out of their system. Drive crazy, do whatever you want, take that car, and then of course you've got a roll bar and a cage and a helmet.
That's what I'm saying. Make it all safe. Yeah,
make it all safe, and then go out there and get it out of their system. That's probably a good idea that nobody ever thought of, but we just did. Okay, but essentially, I've seen too many tragic things that I can't even go into, okay, because they're just so sad, okay. We're talking. I'm fairly old. I'm not going to say how old, but I've seen a lot of stuff on in traffic issues and whatnot, and been in I think the worst thing that ever happened to me is I hit a patch of ice, drove my 1970 Plymouth Duster with a 340 short block, dual quads, tunnel ramp, radial TAs on Krager mags all the way around, over a cliff, landed on a stump, cost me about $2,500 to fix it.
Not a whole lot of steering on that car. Not a whole the flexibility.
The tires were bald too. That didn't help when you hit that ice, right? There was a log truck 50 yards ahead of me. If I'd have been going any slower, I'd have hit him head on.
Yeah.
Okay. It was just the grace of God that I'm here to tell this story. And there's other things that happened, like I was in Aberdeen. There was a log truck on the right, and they've got these one-way streets. And so the light changes, it's green, but for some reason the log truck is not firing up. The log truck is not going, and I'm going, well, I can't see what's on the other side coming, so I'm not going to go until he moves, right? Which was a good thing I did, because I'm a red Malibu, and whoever was driving that, it shot by at 100 miles per hour. If I'd have moved my car, my 1970 Plymouth Duster, if I'd have put that car, in front of that log truck, I'd have been T-boned, okay, and I wouldn't be here again to tell it that. So there's been so many times in vehicles that I nearly bit it, but I can't even count them all. I was actually in a snowcat going up to Stampede Pass. I got lost in a whiteout one time, and I couldn't see where I was going. I stopped, and then it was, to look and see where I was, see if I could figure out some sort of direction, right? I was 1 foot from a 100-foot drop off. Now, I'm not saying there's any traffic issues up at Stampede Pass going up the mountain, okay? That's not it, okay? It's just that driving a vehicle carries certain risks, okay? And for the most part, not to make too light of it, let me give you some numbers, okay? I crunched some numbers on how many people have died since the start of driving automobiles. If you were to take the entire country of Uruguay and just wipe it off the map, that's how many people have died since.
How many? What's the population in Uruguay?
It's millions. It's in the millions. Yeah. Okay, it's like
I'm sure. Yeah.
Anywhere from 11 to 30 million or something like that. There's a lot. Okay, and those are people that have been taken out, okay, and we there's famous people like Princess Grace, or James Dean, or Princess
you got
Diana.
the Fast and the Furious guy was Paul. What's his name? Just died a couple years ago.
I don't know.
I can't think of his last name.
I can't think of it
he
either.
just died real
I never
real
watched
recently.
those movies. They're too fast and furious for me.
I've watched them all. I love them. I'm a sucker for every single one of them.
Okay. I do like race car driving videos. You know, I had a Formula One race, thing, and remember the old pole position from back in the day?
Oh, the old arcade machine?
Yeah, the arcade
oh
machine. Yeah. I got good at that. Anyway, always had high score. There's a certain way you gotta make shortcuts in certain areas. Right? Okay. So anyway, the thing is though, is the number one thing that is a danger to you personally, danger to your family, danger to people you care about. Okay, is getting into a traffic accident, and it's why I think it's one of the main reasons it's hard to be a policeman, because you have to deal with that, with the aftermath of these accidents, and they are terrible.
Oh yeah.
They are terrible. Okay, and to deal with that on a career basis throughout your life. Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a police officer at one time, and
that alone,
nowadays, no way.
That alone is enough to discourage most people, that you're going to have to come up on an accident like that, and see tragedy like you wouldn't believe, like something out of Middle East war or something like that. All this twisted metal and people caught up.
So why don't we just automate all of our cars like Google's talked about, or Tesla, and make all self-driving cars? And they're smart. They know when they're getting close to cars. Is that the solution? Probably have less deaths.
You're going to probably find that this idea gets legs in certain areas, but probably not in others, because the people like control. I know. I'm a control freak. I don't like the idea of just letting a Johnny Cab take me wherever I'm going. Right?
You're like my wife. She doesn't like to get on a plane. She hates planes because she's not flying it.
Yeah. It's a control freak thing. Okay, and I totally understand it. But I also totally understand the logic behind it, because there's a lot of people that should not be driving. Okay, who I would dearly love to see simply get into the car, turn it on, and then let the computer take over.
Then you can watch all your YouTube videos on the way to work.
Yeah, you can black out the windows, just have a movie screen, You can be telecommuting, so I'm running about 15 minutes late for the board meeting. Well, let's start anyway while I'm in the car, right? Something like that.
Yeah, go to meeting on the way, yeah.
Okay, but in all seriousness, the government wants this chaos. It fuels insurance companies. It fuels the whole mechanical industry.
You don't think it'd be great for them to have self-driving cars, though, and be in control of that?
I think it's an idea that needs to be explored. If it saves lives, I am for it. If we can't get rid of the car, we can't get ourselves divorced from that car, which we can't. We can't.
It's not going to happen.
It's the government, as like I say, is dead set on not letting. Okay, which reminds me, I just got into this show called Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've watched.
Have you watched that?
Yeah, I've watched some.
Okay, the Sons of Anarchy is a community. These are people who have each other's back. Okay, now they're into some very bad things. They're selling guns and stuff like that. Which bad boys slap a hand, right? They should be punished for the bad things that they do. Okay, because this is a community, a tribe.
You're the last one in America to catch on to Sons of Anarchy, by the way.
I am. I really am. Everybody else is always talking about it.
It is a good show.
I finally got around to it, and it's basically what it is. I realized it's Hamlet on a Harley. Hamlet on Shakespeare. Hamlet on a Harley. Okay, I get that. That whole the father being killed by the best friend and whatnot, and the son having a problem with it, and all these secrets and whatnot, and goes to the past, because when he's reading that book, his father's talking to him from the grave, and I think Katie Sagal actually points that out even. I mean, it could be more obvious, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of things going on in that show, though. Yeah, I really like it.
There's things I hate about it. There's some gratuitous this and that. But there's also a basic premise, and there's essentially it's dealing in an offbeat way with the idea of tribalism, which is what I talk about. You should have a tribe. You should have legitimate enterprises to support that tribe. Okay, you should be self-sufficient as much as possible. And
play devil's advocate here. What would you say to someone who said that sounds a lot like segregation?
It's not, because you don't have to be segregated. You can have any amount of cultures living in your, because this is what New York did. New York had Harlem. It had the Italian sector, the Jewish sector, the Irish sector. Right?
But it was essentially every group segregated themselves.
They were segregated, but within, and then this is from the old world. They did this because they were new in the new world, and they were bringing the old world, okay? And their old world, they wanted to keep the good things from the old world, okay? And they needed to band together for protection and whatnot. We also got the bad part, the Italian mafia, the Jewish mafia, the Irish gangs, and the Boweries and stuff like that. There was a lot of violence. And if you ever watch Gangs of New York, I think that's probably, it's Hollywood, but it's probably got a lot of accuracy. I think
that's a good one. I like Sopranos. If you haven't watched it, that was very
that's
realistic.
A tribe. Okay.
I've actually seen a bunch of. They've interviewed a lot of real mobsters afterwards in the jail, and they said they nailed that movie. Yeah. Or that show so well, and they talk to a lot of former gangsters and stuff, to figure out how to do it. But
and this is why
that show is very realistic.
I guess the character who plays Happy on Son of Anarchy is an actual Hell's Angel. He was their consultant. Okay, to make sure that everything was as real as possible, they had a Hell's Angel there to basically let you know what was exactly right and wrong with the tribe. So. Anyway, essentially, I did it again. Okay, traffic is the number one danger to you. You are forced to do it every day. Okay.
Number two to drinking a beer every time, Gar says, essentially. Hopefully you're drinking a light beer. No.
If they're still awake by now, I'm going to be surprised. Okay. All right. So you have many things that are going to. There's things that cause cancer. There are things that, from a crime standpoint, there's violence and whatnot that that is increasing in society. There's economic factors, a lot of homelessness and whatnot, and that'll make your life miserable real quick. It's finding yourself on the street.
One of the things a lot of people don't think about that don't live in big towns is I hear people talk about being in Los Angeles and you wake up to have your coffee about 5 o'clock in the morning, and people that aren't used to being there, they look up and it looks like hell's coming in because it's just a black cloud over everything, and it's all the smog that you're breathing in from millions and millions of cars on the road.
And unwashed bodies.
Yes. That'd be a good time to get rid of a body and all that traffic. Everything's on video now.
I'm surprised they haven't done. They probably have. Okay, don't put any ideas. Erase. Don't put any bad ideas in the people's head. Okay, so you take it for granted. It's a danger that you take for granted. It's like living next to a volcano, right? It can go off. It blows lava every once in a while, whatnot. You shouldn't be living there. Okay, if you're in a desert, yes, you could have a drought, and your animals could die, you could die, everything else. Don't live in a desert, right? That Sam Kinison used to say. It's a desert. Don't live there. Move
One of the most underrated comedians ever. That guy tore it up for a long time.
Died in a traffic accident.
Yes, he did. Which he predicted in one of his acts, I believe. But.
Okay, so irony. Okay, is evident and whatnot. Like I said, a lot of famous people got bit in a car. Okay, and it's the tragedy that happens every day. Okay, the bulk of it is from this area which people don't think about. You take it for granted. You are so attuned to accepting it. If you live in a community, you live where you work, live where you shop, right? Okay, so 90% of your time is just spent walking to wherever you want to go, okay? And you're working on self-sufficiency. You don't need to drive. The only people that should be driving would be professionals like me.
You're going to talk to too many people if you're walking, and that could be a dangerous thing.
No, that's a social thing. That's a good thing. Okay, we want.
Well, that's a good thing for us as a society, but that's a bad thing for the government if you're talking about community and people being together.
Anybody who's watched these videos know that I don't give a flip about the government what it wants. Okay, you have to, because they will make life miserable for you and come after you with a stick if you don't jump through the hoops. Okay, we understand that. That's a given. The government is a danger, but the government also knows that traffic is a danger to you. And they like it that way. It is a de facto form of population control that nobody questions, because it's fun to drive. Essentially, that's what it is. It's fun to drive. It's fun to go here. It's fun to go there.
It's a lot funner to drive faster than you're supposed to, though. I will say.
The whole mystique of driving, oh, believe me, I love cars. I love old classic cars. I collect 8-tracks. Those are tied to the cars, right? The first time Americans could have music in their car was with 8-tracks, right?
And you have those people that drive better when they've had a few drinks, right? Haven't you ever heard that? I'm a better driver after a few drinks.
It's there's probably this much truth in it, okay, and this much not, okay. So erase. Okay. By the way, speaking of 8-tracks, okay.
Very little truth, yeah.
By the way, a friend of mine went to the White River concert with Peter Frampton, Steve Miller, and I gave him a bunch of primo condition, mint condition Frampton tape. I had 6 Frampton albums, different albums, all in mint condition, and 8 Steve Miller albums to try and get them signed, right?
Oh yeah.
They could only it was one tape, one autograph per person, and Steve Miller wasn't even signing. He wasn't signing anything, right?
Usually you got to pay to get back to those places where the artists sign now.
And that's what my friend did. He got the meet and greet, right? He had to pay the extra money, right? Yeah. But then they just run you through like a cattle chute, right? Okay, he's going to come out. They tell you he's going to come out. You get your autograph, pose, click the picture, you're done, right? And so my friend, he had another friend with him. They both paid for these meet and greets, right? And they were back there. Each one had a tape, okay, and so Peter Frampton signs the first 8-track, right? So I have that. That's good, okay. Then his friend says, make it out to the same guy, right? And he looks at that, and he said, this is the same guy as the other guy. So it's like I'm cheating, like somebody's getting 2 for 1, right? And so he just puts to me or to Garth, right?
Yeah.
And then doesn't sign it. So I've got an autograph and a half. I got one that says to Garth, and the other one says to Garth, Peter Frampton, and to Garth. Okay. I don't know what was going on. Okay, but
that makes it more rare. He wrote on it and forgot the autograph.
That is rare.
So you want a rare Peter Frampton memorabilia?
It's a mixed
Get
blessing.
a hold of Garth.
Yeah, get a hold of me. Make me an offer, okay, and you can have to Garth, okay.
Put your offer down there in the comments. Maybe we'll end on that right there. Put your offer for his Peter Frampton 8-track on there.
I don't know. I just got the darn thing.
Don't text and drive.
I'm not going to cut the umbilical right away, but you can make an offer. Money talks.
Everything's for sale. You just got to have the right price, right?
Especially this 8-track. Okay, so basically, on the same note, I had 2 8-tracks autographed by Peter Noon. Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits. If you're a Herman's Hermits fan, I highly recommend going to see him in concert. He's very energetic for his age. It was a wonderful show I saw at the Puyallup Fair, and he will stand there and sign until the very last person's gone. He signs everything people put in front of him. Okay, he is such a nice guy. He treats his fans so well. Okay, this is the way every celebrity should treat their fans. Okay, it's just Mel Brooks is another one. Mel Brooks is I transported him, and he signed Young Frankenstein's soundtrack for me.
Nice. I think that's a great transition into another subject, or maybe I head into what's the best band you've ever seen? What's your favorite band?
I got to go with B-52s. I went to a concert in the
Love
80s.
Shack, huh?
No, this is before Love Shack. This is when in the 80s when they were really at the top of their game. I think Wild Planet, not Wild Planet. It was Whammy. The Whammy album had just come out, and all the members were there. I think Ricky died, so they don't have the original members now and whatnot. But but I love that band. I love the music. Bought every album. And if anybody's got the B-52s on 8-track, I am looking for those, definitely. But this concert in Seattle at the Seattle Arena was written up in the paper. Literally every single person in that arena was dancing. I was dancing with young ladies who I had never met before. Okay, there was total shit. But we just looked at each other and we go, we got to dance, right? And so everybody was dancing. It was
there was a little alcohol involved before this, right?
Not for me. Not for me. I was there for the music, and whatnot. It was.
She just letting the girls drink.
I don't know if they had any imbibed or not, but it was great. It was the greatest concert I was at. I was also at a Foghat concert one time back in the day at the Kingdome. That was loud, and I couldn't hear for days. So I guess it was good.
Yeah, that's how Metallica was in Quest. I just went 9th of this month, a couple weeks ago. Metallica in Quest was really good. Yeah. It was very, very loud. Two of the best concerts I've ever been to were actually this month with my daughter, and the first was with Green Day, and the second one was Metallica. Much different kinds of concerts when you go from the White River Amphitheater, very intimate, to a huge 60,000 person crowd in Quest. It's hard to compare them, but like you were talking about with the B-52s, I've never seen a crowd so entranced as with Billy Joe Armstrong. I don't know what I expected out of that crowd. And Green Day, they're not my favorite band, but they're one of them, and me and my daughter both wanted to see them. If he would have told everybody in the crowd to do fill in the blanks, they would have done it. I've never seen anybody in a trance and control a crowd like that. I was under control. I was hypnotized.
Yeah.
He could, and
they have that power. This is, it's.
And he went on for almost 4 hours straight, no breaks. It's like a 37 song.
That's a true
set list.
Yeah. This is what fans are there for. This is what they're paying for. Then they know they got their money's worth, and they'll come back because they know it's good like that. And these headliners in Vegas are the same way. They have their fans, their crowds that show up all the time and whatnot. Wayne Newton, I guess, is one.
I'd love to go to Vegas just to see a lot of people. I have seen Garth Brooks when he did this 1 year tour. He left Vegas not too long ago. I seen him in Portland. And Garth Brooks, he was a great performer.
I had a chance to get a Garth Brooks T-shirt, but he wasn't in my size here. A friend of mine has one. He sells them. Anyway, my best concert was going to be the B-52s, and then Fog had a close second. I saw Genesis in concert in Austin.
I would have loved to see Genesis.
This drum duet thing they had going at the time was really cool. I come this close to seeing the Texas Jam back in the day too, and the Cotton Bowl. Just couldn't get in for some reason. Got there, couldn't get in, no tickets or whatever. But anyway, I heard it all from the outside. And had a party out there in the.
Hey, that's what happens sometimes. You tailgate out there, the beer's cheaper.
The White River Amphitheater, though, it has problems with when it has really big headliners. Traffic coming in there gets jammed up all the way back to Auburn.
Oh, it was very bad for this one. Luckily, I think Green Day started a little late. Actually, we were stuck outside for a long time. There was actually one accident that was really bad. There was a van or another car that had gotten in a wreck, and I seen it on my GPS coming up, and it said like 41 minutes slowdown is what I was saying for a while, because it'll tell you how different slowdowns to avoid them, and obviously you can't avoid going on the street going into the concert if you're going to the concert,
right.
But it was significantly compounded by this accident. of someone texting and driving. No, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's going to happen, and when you get people together and they're excited, they're distracted. You know, mom with all the kids in the car, and the dog jumps up. You know, and distraction at the wrong time. You know, there's a zillion things that can go wrong. Okay, so. The best way to keep tragedy out of your life is to keep traffic out of your life as much as possible, and be aware that this is imposed on you. It's for a reason. Okay, now when cars first started driving in cities, there was a lot of accidents right away. Okay, pedestrians, you know, they weren't even hardly aware of cars being a big deal. They were worried about the horse and buggy, right?
Yeah.
You know, when a horse is coming at you, you know, it's you got a little bit more reaction time, you know.
Yeah.
You see it coming, right? You know, but a car is a little bit different, sounded different, and you know, and people just didn't understand how to control their vehicles. So there was a lot of accident. What they did is they blamed the pedestrian. This is why you have jaywalking laws, because people used to just cross wherever they felt like it. You just walked across the road wherever. Okay, and what the jaywalking laws did is they basically turned it around, put it on. You know, as you pedestrian, you need to be crossing at the corner. Now that way, the people who are in the cars don't have to play, you know, dodgeball or bumper cars or whatever, trying to avoid pedestrians weaving in around and whatnot. You know.
Well, I'm gonna take that one step further, because especially back then, even more so than now, is they like to put the laws on the people that were not in as high economic class.
Yeah.
So if you were walking, you were probably, maybe you couldn't afford a car. They're going to harass those people more than the people that have money. Yeah. Now it's maybe changed sometimes a little bit, because they want to fine you and they want to get your money. But
oh yeah. I mean, it's the whole, you know, writing the tickets and for speeding and whatnot. You know, it creates more chaos, but it's a money maker. The whole everything about putting you at risk in traffic is a money maker for the system. Okay, so you can say the bottom line is part of it, but it's also the need to control population, to create chaos, which benefits the government.
Here's a conundrum. Here's a conundrum, though. You get self-driving cars. There's a lot of conundrums from this, but what happens to traffic tickets and all? I would like to see. I can't Google right now because I'm recording on the phone, but how much revenue is brought in state to state and nationwide from traffic fines? It's got to be astronomical.
I don't know. I can't see a robot cop pulling over a robot driver who's, you know, going.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're going to lose all that revenue. Hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars are going to dry up.
There's a lot of room for, you know, Ryan would be making funny stuff if he was here about these.
I know, that's why we need the 3-person team at once.
Yeah, he was unavoidably detained.
He's funnier than I am. But,
last week I was unavoidably detained. Yeah, probably traffic was at the bottom of it in some form or fashion. Okay, so I like to make sure I harp on everything.
One last one we haven't hit those. What happens to unemployment rates? Self-driving cars, self-driving vehicles. It's one of the largest occupations in the country is driving.
Yeah,
truck drivers, bus drivers, taxis, Uber. How many Uber drivers are out there?
I know it is a huge industry, and so the only way to avoid it is to create a self-sufficient community. And the only people who drive in that community, you know, should be the professional driver who lives there, and that's his job.
You don't think the answer is just more taxes? Come on, we don't have enough taxes. Just tax the crap out of everybody.
See, that brings up a whole other rant about life that's a road.
That's one of the things that would happen, though.
The moment our little headline on YouTube says, "Oh, terrible taxes," right? Something like that. You know, people are going to go, I've heard about that enough. I don't want to dwell on that, right? You know. Well, which reminds me, we need to make a good little header for this YouTube thing. We got to have something that captures the imagination. Fast and Furious. Okay.
There we go.
You're going to read Fast and Furious above here.
We'll try to get something unique, yeah.
And then you're going to get dull and boring.
And then you guys can tell us down in the comments what you would have really changed it to.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Make those comments.
And
Alright,
I think we're ready to wrap this one up and maybe
Yes.
go to a new subject. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, guys. We'll maybe get a couple out this week. And thanks for listening to us rant. Give us your comments down below.
Be careful when you drive. Be careful. Do your best. Believe me, that's the best advice I can give you. Avoid it, as much as possible. Drive only when necessary, and train your kids really well. Okay, with defensive driving techniques and everything else. You have to do your very best to protect yourself because the system's not going to change anytime soon. Definitely due diligence when it comes to driving. Okay, and watch out for the other guy. People who can't, who can't really drive well. And
We don't even want you subscribing to our channel while you're driving.
Yes.
You're gonna wait till you get home to
Wait
watch
till
the
you get
video
home.
and the like.
Okay, so is that it? Is that
That's
the
it.
thrill? Erase.
Thanks, guys.